Hi, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to Women Speakers Association Speaker Success Training. If we haven't already met, my name is Gail Watson. I'm founder and CEO of Women Speakers Association. And if you're new to this, each month we gather as a community and provide you with valuable tools, skills, and resources that helps you get seen, booked, and paid. So if this is your first time with us today, please feel free to download your Speaker Success Plan. It's free when you come into our community. So Tracy can put that link in the chat box so you can download that, and you can connect with that after. So this is an interactive session, and we are going to have lots of time to take your questions. So these are really important instructions to follow. You have a Q&A box on your navigation bar. When Charmaine is interviewing our panelists, or while she's sharing some of her great information, if you have a question that comes up, put it in that Q&A box. That's why we can assure you to get to your question. If it goes in the chat, with the amount of people that are on this call today, we might lose you in that chat. So Q&A would really help us out. So while you're in this room, if you are a new author and have just published your book and are now saying, I have this book, now what? Then you are in the right place. Maybe you've published a book some time ago and it hasn't quite moved the way you thought it would. Then you too are also in the right place. And maybe your book is doing pretty good out there, right? And now it's time for you to really leverage and scale it and create its maximum impact that it could be having. And so you too are in that right place. So I'd like to welcome you to Book Marketing and Selling Strategies that will produce results. Together with Raise a Dream, Women Speakers Association and Raise a Dream have come together to share with you some practical, success-proven strategies that will sell books and produce results. We just recently ran a small group with unbelievable, extraordinary results that I know Charmaine will share with us. And we knew that this had to be something that got into the hands of many more people, because the results will speak for yourself. You'll see it. Numbers don't lie. So let's get right into this. Make sure
let's dive in.
And I'm going to formally introduce Charmaine to you so that if you've never met her before. So Charmaine Hammond, who's sitting right next to me here, is a certified speaking professional and award-winning author that has been in the business of transforming lives and raising dreams for more than 25 years. This former correctional officer, she worked in jails, and corporate dispute resolution expert, now travels the world teaching the principles of collaboration, partnership, and sponsorship. Her clients are having tremendous success securing their own partners and sponsors as a result of Charmaine's teachings and programs. She is the best-selling author of 5 books and featured in 6 other books. She's a CSP, certified speaking professional, and has had tremendous success in finding corporate sponsors to fund her speaking. She has developed sponsorship relationships with more than 40 sponsors and 60 partners. She's helped her clients sell books in bulk, get books into libraries, secure cash sponsorships, get their clothes, travels, event needs, and more sponsored through the power of relationships and collaborations. You are in the right place. You're in the right hands. Take lots of notes, enjoy yourself, ask questions. Charmaine, welcome.
Thank you, Gail. And it was such an honor and pleasure to work with WSA on your book as a business. And I've been a WSA member for a long, long time, proud member. And the work that WSA does in supporting speakers and authors is super, super important. And I'm delighted today to talk about how do we make our book a business. And we're just before we introduce our incredible panelists, I'm just going to share a few things that I've done to make my book a business. And then we're going to bring on 3 incredible authors, and I'm going to interview them, and you are going to hear some gems of wisdom that will help you make your book a business. So one of the first things I learned when my first book came out, which is 10 years ago, by the way, we are in the second edition of On Toby's Terms, which is the book about my dog and how he taught me to be a better person. It's a memoir. And that book is in the second edition. We're celebrating 10 years. But one of the first lessons I ever discovered when, Gail, you mentioned the whole, I've written my book, now what? My big now what moment was when I realized how hard it is to sell books at book signing events one at a time. You cart your 4 or 5 books to the Chapters or Barnes and Noble bookstore and you sell 8. And I thought, this is an awful lot of work. I'm getting a wonderful physical exercise hauling books around, but it's not selling a lot. And then I discovered the power of what I call a BOGO. Buy one, gift one. And this is where you actually encourage people to purchase 2 books from you at your signing event. And one of those books is what they go home with. And of course, you've signed it and talked to them at your signing table. The second book you donate to a charity. And it's even more powerful when you pick the charity in advance, bring that charity to your signing event and present that charity with this big basket or box of all the books that have been purchased by people that were at your book signing. So that was one strategy. It consistently, at minimum, doubled my book sales at every book signing, at speaking engagements. And the big learning for me was people don't buy 2 books when the offer is not presented to them. And then I thought, well, come on, isn't it obvious? And then my friend said, Charmaine, you've been to a lot of author book signings. How many times did you just buy 2? And I thought, touche, we don't think about buying 2 books. So that's one way to generate a lot of sales. And the goal is about getting your book into the hands and ears of readers around the world. You wrote this book for a reason. And when you buy one, gift one, you're selling more books, but you're touching more lives. Another thing that I learned is I was always taught to sell your books from the back of the room. And as a speaker, like many of you are today, that is a wonderful strategy to sell your books at the back of the room. But then I notice that often people are running out of the event to get the coffee or to be first in line for lunch, and they don't come back to buy the book. And I thought, what about if I had books at the front of the room and at the back of the room, which meant having a volunteer. So if you're going to do this, you want to have a volunteer or a team member who manages the back table. And you also have a table at the front, right by where you're speaking, with your books positioned in such a way that people are looking at them while they're looking at you on stage. To find an opportunity to read something from your book or use it as an example. And what you'll find is that people at the end of your presentation, when you've clearly told them that you have books available for sale, that was another mistake I did. I just assumed it was obvious when they were stacked up and people didn't realize that they were for sale and they took all my books. The first time I did that, 120 books gone. And I wasn't going to go and ask them all to bring them back. So it was a very large donation I made to that conference. That was the learning, that we need to communicate clearly when we make our book a business. So I clearly talked about having my books available for sale. And what I found is that that strategy of front of the room, back of the room, doubled book sales. I generally would sell out of all the books that I had, but it provided maximum opportunity to engage with the audience. So really powerful strategy in making your book a business. Make sure you're including your books in your speaking fee. It allows you some negotiation room. I find that as soon as I started including books in all of my speaking engagements, and I increased my fee to be able to do that, people would buy more books, because if my fee included, say, 50 books and there was 200 people at the conference, they might say, well, what are we going to do with the other 150 people? And then you can do what's called a bulk buy, where you discount on the large bulk quantity and everybody in the room gets a copy of your book. Or my favorite strategy, and those women who were in Your Book as a Business with me know how passionate I am talking about sponsorship. That's another way to move your books and get your books into the hands of event attendees when you are speaking, whether that be at a workplace training, a conference, a community event, is to have sponsors purchase your books in bulk and provide them to the conference organizer as a gift to give out to all of the attendees or put in their swag bags, conference bags, or you hand them out at the event. I've also been able to work with companies to buy my books as Christmas gifts or gifts for March International Women's Day and other sort of celebrations that happen through the year. And workplaces are often looking for books that have nothing to do with workplace training. They're looking for books that are inspirational. They're looking for books that are skill development, like not necessarily about the job that the person does at that employment and their employment, but more about how we can broaden our social skills, our personal skills, personal development books. They work really well for Christmas gifts. And then make sure that in your state or province that you have checked out public lending rights. I get a royalty check every year in Canada because my book is in libraries. And so the government issues authors a check, a royalty check for having your book in libraries, which is why in your book and your business program, we talk about getting your book into libraries. There's a lot of benefits for you on that. Those are a few things that I've done that have made my book a business, that have generated revenue. And the cool thing is my books have sold speaking, and my speaking has sold books. So when you think about your speaking and author business as working in tandem, your results will be much better. An interesting, a little interesting mathematical fact is many years ago, when my husband and I were getting tired of carting these boxes of books back from book signings before I had discovered this BOGO method, Chris noticed, Chris is my husband, and he said, you know, Charmaine, I think it takes you about the same amount of time to sell one book as it does 10. And then I had a conference purchase 100 books, and he said, you sold those 100 books in less time than you did selling 10 individual books. The cost was higher for me to sell them individually, and it took way longer. So I really want you to think about these bigger strategies, moving books in bigger ways so that your message can help more people around the world. Now, I'm going to get ready to introduce our incredible panelists because, boy, oh boy, these ladies are doing very cool things with their books, and I've got to know them through your Book as a Business program. One of them I've known for many years. You'll hear about that in a moment. And incredible work that they're doing, not only as authors, as speakers. And this is where there's that opportunity to really look at your business as a holistic business, that your books support your speaking and your speaking supports your books. So these gorgeous women you can see on the screen, I'm going to introduce you now, and then we're diving into questions. So I'm going to start with Kamini Wood. Kamini is the founder and CEO of Live Joy Your Way and the Authentic Me Rise Up program. She is an international best-selling author and is driven to support both teens and adults struggling with perfectionism so that they can let go of stress, let go of anxiety, and let go of overwhelm. She's a certified life coach, board certified by the American Association of Drugless Practitioners. She's trained as well in conscious parenting and conscious uncoupling. She aims to meet her clients where they are, supporting and guiding them on their journey back to inner confidence, energy, and empowerment to be themselves, both personally and professionally. Welcome, Kamini. And then we have Carrie Cohan, and we go way back. Carrie and I, we knew each other years and years ago, and I've got the opportunity to get to know Carrie's children, her incredible daughters. She's no stranger to living outside the norm. She's an international speaker, facilitator, and best-selling author. She actually had her book on the bestseller list for 57 weeks consecutively in 7 countries around the world. That comes with a little bit of work and some really good strategies that you're going to hear some tips from Carrie. She's built 3 multi-million-dollar construction companies in her youth. She currently is the owner of Villa Heaven Artist Retreat Center in Portugal. And her ex-business partner, Tony Robbins, and is a national child advocate. She's actually been awarded a number of medals from Queen Elizabeth, United Nations, and the federal government in Canada. And Carrie had lived in Canada for many, many years, working to rewrite laws that protect children and families. In her international best-selling book that we talked about, The 5 Lessons of Life, she shares excerpts and stories from her own personal journals and tells the story of some near-death experiences that she had. And The 5 Lessons of Life is considered to be one of the most comprehensive near-death experience books ever told. Welcome, Carrie. And then we have Anita Russell. And Anita is a speaker, international best-selling author, change cultivator, and is a Maxwell certified life coach, international best-selling author, and the founder of Place to Soar, a social enterprise dedicated to cultivating change through daily growth and personal development for the purpose of releasing human potential. Her most recent publications include I Want to See Lainey's House, a sibling story that came out in March 2019, and it represents her deliverance journey from broken child to whole adult. And she's also the co-author of the international bestseller, Voices of the 21st Century, Bold, Brave, and Brilliant Women Who Make a Difference. That was in 2019. And Trusting in God, Stories That Inspire, a collection of short stories, testimonies, teachings, and life-changing articles from Christian authors. And that was in 2019. Wow, what a powerhouse group you are. You can unmute yourself because we are diving into questions now. I'm just inspired reading your bios. You make me want to go write another book. All right, here we go. We're going to dive into some questions because each of you have done a variety of different marketing efforts. Connie and Carrie, I had the opportunity to work with you very, very closely in your Book as a Business program. So I've been seeing some of the work that you've been doing over the last number of months as you've worked through all the different modules. And Anita, I know you are rocking it out in your speaking and book world. So let's dive in. The first question I'd love you all to share, and I'm going to ask this to each of you, is if you can just give us sort of the bullet pointed list to start with of some of the different ways that you have marketed your book, promoted your book, sold your book, essentially made your book a business. So Connie, I'm going to start with you this time. What are some of the things that you've done to make your book a business?
Thanks, Charmaine. I always hate going first, but that's okay.
Sorry, I didn't know that, or did I?
I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. The way that I have marketed my book has been through speaking engagements. I have been doing a lot of podcast guest spots, so I speak about my book a lot there. I have also utilized my website and social media as ways to market the book. Yeah. And then in terms of dealing with COVID, because we can't do in-person speaking engagements, I've done things like create this lovely background, my virtual background, which is a way to quietly market my book. And then in terms of because I know you spoke very eloquently about how you could sell from the front of the room or the back of the room. Well, since there's no physical room, when we're doing it virtually, the way that I have been doing it is speaking about it and then making sure in the chat box to provide the links both on Amazon as well as from my website. So those are just a couple of the ways that I've done it.
Wonderful. And I love the range. I mean, you're talking about digital marketing. You're talking about that showing the world who Connie is as an author, that subtle marketing. And by the way, I think it's a great strategy to be able to show our book, because one of the things that's important as an author is people will hear you on media and they might not remember the name of your book. And here's how I know that to be true. When I was on TV in Canada once, I hadn't done what I do now, which is call the bookstores and make sure they've all ordered lots of books because I'm going to be on media. I didn't know about that strategy way back when the book first came out. And the Chapters bookstore, which is a big bookstore in Canada, phoned me and said, are you an author? Did you just write a book? Is your book about a green dog? The book cover is green with a dog's face. And he said, next time, what would be really helpful is that you let us know your book. So what you're doing, Connie, is when you're talking about people learning your book cover, seeing your book cover, it becomes memorable and people could gossip about it. So awesome. We're going to come back with some more tips from you in a moment. Carrie, same question. With your bulleted list, what are some of the things you've done to make your book a business, to market and sell your books?
Well, I came to you, number one. Right? Because when I first launched the book, I mean, like so many authors, got the #1 best-selling and it went international, but then what? You know, and so I started searching, and I was a member of WSA, and I thought, this is the first course I've ever taken through them, and I'm so grateful, because what you showed me was so many things. I went on a Canadian book tour, and I spent a month and a half, 2 months on this book tour, and I made one opportunity into 5 opportunities in every single place that I went. That was all stuff that you showed me, you know, how I would go from a book signing to, oh gosh, podcast interviews with media, you know, finding different bookstores, doing webinars, doing workshops, doing sessions with people, one-to-one sessions, all of those things. So it actually was more 1 to about 7 things per place that I went to. That was huge. The other thing was the buy one, get one. Never thought of that before coming to your course. And from there, I was able to target, well, not target, that sounds rather crass, but I had a girlfriend that was a teacher at a university. And so in chatting with her, she loved the book so much. She helped me actually edit it. And she went to the school and to the principal, showed the book to the principal read it. They ordered 300 books for the school. So wow. I wouldn't have thought of that, you know, had I not come to the course. There were so many things that I did in marketing, and every week there was something with the group. Yeah.
And I just want to shout out your tour, Carrie, because I watched that from a distance. So did a lot of your colleagues in the program. And so there's a couple things here that we want to also mention is, so Carrie's talking right now about the importance of leveraging the relations that you have. You all have relationships, connections, places that you might have worked, places that you have presented to as a speaker. These relationships become powerful. And Carrie, I love your example. One conversation, 300 people in a school are impacted by your book. That's beautiful.
Yeah, it was actually the social working program within the university.
Lovely.
It was my book is on near-death experience. I'm going to give it a little, you know, it's called The 5 Lessons of Life. Yep. Imagine that I have a thing behind me to see it. See, and this is another example, because here I just came in today and I went, ladies, how are you doing all these backdrops?
Yeah.
And I'm still learning from you, right?
Comedy will do a course for us, maybe.
Yeah, no, it's beautiful. So,
and the other piece I wanted to mention too, Carrie, is you talked about the importance of looking for those, what we call piggyback opportunities, where you can turn one event into 7 events. So I love that. Mm-hmm. Now, thank you, Carrie.
My
Anita,
pleasure.
Same question. What are some of the marketing and book selling strategies that you've worked that have served you well, or that you had some great experiences with?
So I'm actually going to start from the perspective of the fact that this, the whole concept of marketing a book, when I wrote my first solo project, I had no idea. Like, I'm just putting it out there with absolute honesty. I had no idea, how do you go about marketing a book? And I was working with a publishing company, but there wasn't really enough of a connection between the publishing part and the marketing part. And so I found myself in a situation where I just really needed to figure this out. This is before I knew Charmaine existed. I was working with a Women's Speakers Association and all of that, but I didn't have that broad enough understanding of what I had my hands on. So my first solo project is I Want to See Lainey's House, which is basically a biography. I, work with the publisher. We got the book out there, and it's on Amazon, and it's over here, and it's over there. And I'm like, exactly like that. And so one of the things that I did do was I did on my launch day, I did it on Facebook. So my launch day was like all day long, but it was basically just me. And what I did was I had like these games. So people who knew me, I came up with these trivia questions as part of the event. And if you got the question correct, I would send you a free copy of my book. So I was coming up with those types of strategies. However, none of it was really comprehensive to the extent that we're talking about now. So I really consider myself to still kind of be in that learning phase. And I would say one of the things that really worked well for me was when I shifted my perspective of who I was. And I shifted my perspective to I am a writer. I didn't necessarily think of myself as a writer. I was still wrestling with that identification and all of that. But once I decided, Anita, you are a writer, and then that sort of opened up things for me. It opened up my own thinking for me to even consider the possibility that my book could actually be a part of my business. And so it was very much a learning curve for me. And I'm still on that learning curve right now.
I don't know that the learning curve actually ends, Anita. Sorry. You know, our world is changing. Every day there's some new platform, some new way. I mean, I remember when my children's book came out, the new platform at the time, 5 years ago, it was this video platform where you could contract someone to read your children's book, and they created these videos, and we went all crazy into that, and we were doing that, and then that ended. and then that particular company is no longer, and then it was into something different. So you raise a really good point, Anita, that it is an ongoing learning journey, because technology, selling, the ways that we connect with readers around the world is constantly evolving, and we're changing and growing as well, which means we can step into bigger risks. We can step into new creative things that we may not have thought about 6 months or a year ago, because as you said, Anita, we're changing, we're growing, we're evolving. You know, the other piece I wanted to come back to what you said, that I think a lot of us miss as authors. I sure did when my first book came out 10 years ago. Actually, my first published work was Chicken Soup for the Soul, what I learned from a dog, and I just planned on writing a story. The story got picked up by a publisher, which is how On Troublous Terms became my book. But, you know, I bought my 125 books that I needed to buy or whatever it was because of the contract. And my goal was to sell 125 books, and I would be really happy. And my husband said, "Did you do all that work just to sell 125 books? Really?" And the day I showed up for my first book signing, and there were 65 people that came. Now, many of them were family and friends and neighbors. And I thought, this is really cool. And that's when I had the same aha that you had, Anita. I'm a writer, and I haven't been talking about myself in that way or describing myself. So it's really important to be able to recognize that you are a writer. People want to know the person behind the book. Trust me, they do. And the other thing you mentioned is the importance of having those goals. Many of us do not set goals around our book. You know, we might say we want to become a bestseller. I'm talking drilled down. How many books do you want to sell this quarter? How many books do you want to give away as reading copies and for award submissions? How many copies do you want to give away at speaking engagements as door prizes or swag? Really important that we have those goals, because when we don't, the boxes of books become our furniture. Right? And so the goals create the strategy. So thank you for reminding that. Now, I'd love to hear from all of you around, going to drill down a little bit more from that question. Out of some of the things that you have done to market and sell your book, get your book into hands of readers in different communities and in different audiences, if you were to say that there was one thing you did that really brought results, and results doesn't necessarily just mean book sales. It could be that strategy landed you speaking engagements, or it landed you media. If there was one thing that you want to share right now, what would that one thing be? And Carrie, I'll start with you this time. What would the one thing be?
Yeah, it was by accident. You know, again, going back to the workshop, there was such power in numbers, and you would leave there feeling enthusiastic. And I think that enthusiasm it's contagious. So I was feeling pretty jazzed the next morning after our first workshop. I get this text, and it's from a girlfriend, and she's taken a picture with the book, and she's like, actually, she's like this.
Yeah.
You know,
Oh.
I really like this. And she gave a testimonial with a picture in front of the book. And I shared it. And then all of a sudden, another person was like, hey, another, hey. And it started to snowball. All of a sudden, I was getting pictures sent in all through my social media, from Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. But then it went from there to Amazon. And,
Wow.
and now I'm on Barnes and Noble and Chapters and all of those. And so, you know, Amazon, if you go on there, you know, to look, it shows a bunch of pictures of people doing the hi. And I think that, you know, it was enthusiasm that becomes contagious, because when you see someone standing behind the product, standing behind the book and saying, I love this book.
Yeah.
That just snowballed it. It was a grassroots movement that just took a life of its own because of people supporting it with photos.
I love that. And that's how you start reaching customers and readers that you don't have access to, because the people that we're seeing those individuals posts and shares on social media are people that you might not be connected to on social media or email. And I love how it just snowballs and blossoms and brings community around a book. And that community is really important. Thank you so much, Carrie. Anita, what about you? One activity that just kind of stands out as a do-againer.
One of the things that I did in terms of sort of bringing the community together around books is that I hosted an event where my book was obviously featured there. But what I wanted to do was also bring in other local authors. And so we came together and did this book event. And the whole idea behind the why I wanted to do it that way is because I wanted to have an audience of community-based individuals in the same room with a panel of authors. I had about 10 individuals, and we sort of did it like a networking event. So people had to walk around and they had to meet all the authors and they had to ask them questions, and there was prizes that we were doing and all of that. But I think the key to the whole entire thing is at the end of the event, we actually did a panel discussion where we had some questions prepared, some questions that were moderated, and it gave the authors to really, really talk extensively about why they write their books, who do they want to connect with. And it was almost magical because there were connections between the community members themselves and the book authors. So that's something that I want to kind of springboard off of and do some more. So I've been kind of collecting a group of authors from I'm in Pittsburgh, so authors from the city of Pittsburgh, and we're going to be doing some things going forward as well.
Fantastic. Yeah, community, it's so important. You know, I never realized how much people do want to know the author behind the book. What inspired you to write this? This is why we talk about in our program, and why I've made this part of my marketing strategy, is to actually get in front of book clubs, because of exactly what Anita is saying, is that community, the sense of people that, the sense of community of people that are interested in the topic that you write on. More importantly, they want to know, what was your experience as an author? Because they're coming at it from the reader perspective. So I love that you've mentioned that. Thank you, Anita. Kamini, what about you? What's that one marketing activity that really served you well?
The one marketing activity that served me the best, or the one that I'm calling on right now, is doing interviews describing my why. What made me put this book together? To your point specifically, people want to understand that the author is a real person. And when they can understand the why behind it, or just the story behind how the book came about, I think they feel this connection to not just the author, but to the book itself.
Yeah.
And so I feel that was really, and truthfully, that I gained that knowledge through taking your course. So I can't take credit for it. But,
sure you can. You did the work on that.
But just allowing myself to really go there and explain, this is why I put this book together, really allowed, I think, people that insight into who I was as a person, but then also, like I said, that story behind the book, which made them connected to it.
Yeah. And this is so important that you've raised this, Kamini, because what happens with readers is that we've all done this. We've read a book that we loved and we say, oh, on Facebook, I just finished reading this book. Or we go and do a review for somebody because we love their book. Or we good gossip over the dinner table. Oh, I just finished that book, or just finished listening to that audiobook. And we tell stories about the book. We tell, our favorite chapter. We tell something that just stood up, something that landed, on us. And we tell stories, and we know that stories connect stories connect people. Speakers, that's what you do. You connect people through stories. And when you add that next layer that Kamini and our authors today are talking about, that layer of community and letting people get to know you as the author, you now have given them something else to share when they're talking about the book, and it becomes memorable. People pass that information on, and that's the reason we want to talk about the writing experience, not just the book. So thank you, Kamini, for that. All right.
Can I add to that, Charmaine, for just a second?
You bet.
Because it brought something up. Kamini and I were in the course together with you, and there was a point in the class, the master class, I think it was like the third week, and you guys were talking about podcasts, and we're talking about specific sites. And I had never thought about, being a member on any of these sites. Kamini, you were a member on a site, and you started talking about the success of it and how you were getting all these interviews. Well, I was like, okay, by the end of that class, I was registered on that site, and I've been literally interviewed around the world like Kamini because of, all the information that we were sharing together. Great. And now we have sales in Australia that we never had before because of being together and learning from one another. It was awesome.
I'm just going to wrap another teaching moment around this. So when Carrie talks about now we have book sales in Australia, this is really important to know that the more you're like on Amazon, I'm hoping that those of you who are authors have a really, really solid Amazon author central page. We work on this actually in the program, but the reason you want to have that is because it helps you track where sales are coming from in different parts of the world. So when Carrie can go on and see, oh, wow, we just sold books in Australia, then she can go back and say, I was not in Australia speaking. So what generated those sales? She can actually look at the marketing activities. She might say, oh, I was just on 2 podcasts that happened to have a global audience. Maybe I need to do that more. And it can also go back to what Anita was talking about, goals and strategy. And goals and strategy is, okay, we're selling books in Australia right now. What else can we do to support continued sales in Australia? Maybe I research more podcasts. Maybe I see if there's an online summit. Maybe I get some book reviewers or media to review the book. So this is where you can start to be really strategic. And the site that Kamini, the site that you and Carrie were referencing, which one was that?
Podcastguests.com.
Okay, yeah, because I know we've had a few in the program. Podcastguests.com is fantastic. I'll put the link in some follow-up notes for you all. It's a great way to find media. We've actually been collecting media and podcast hosts in a database now at Raise a Dream. So I don't even know how big that database is that you all got on the program, but I think it's like, I don't know, 40 pages of 40 pages of podcasts. So you don't even have to go and research them yourself. And there's also sites that pay you to write. So if you love the writing process and as a speaker, you want to get your message out through that mechanism, there are platforms that actually have you paid as a guest blogger. Now, I wanted to go to this tip before we pull it together. With respect to speaking, and remember, speaking doesn't necessarily mean being on the stage physically at an event or in a company's boardroom providing training. It could be speaking virtually on webinars or summits, online training. It can be speaking through media. as Carrie and Kamini were just talking about. For the three of you, has there been any ways that you've been able to kind of leverage in tandem speaking, however that looks for you, and your book? Anita, what about for you? Have you been able to kind of leverage that piece?
Yeah, definitely. As you mentioned in my introduction, the name of my company is The Place to Soar. And so underneath that brand, initially when I established the company, it was my life coaching practice was under that. But as I began to get more and more comfortable with identifying myself as a writer, and then also taking the way that I coach and embedding that into my writing. So for example, I have these 6 keys to nurture, grow, and empower your life. And that serves as one of the foundational pieces in my coaching practice. And so what I did was I took it one step further and I created a workbook and a journal that was based on what I do as a life coach. And so the idea for me was to now have all 3 of these things under that brand. So my brand includes the life coaching, it includes the speaking, and it includes the writing. So I kind of integrated all of that together under a single brand. And so whether I'm talking about this delivery mode or whether I'm talking about that delivery mode, the messaging that's coming across is essentially the same. So I think for me that was sort of a win for me from a leveraging perspective.
Yeah, I love that you're thinking about that as a brand, Anita, because, and just the fact that you went from book and the coaching and now you've got a workbook. One of my mentors told me years ago, for every book, there needs to be 9 wraparound products. I'm like, 9? And he said, well, could your book be broken down into, I had a book called Bounce Forward that I self-published. And so he said, is there distinct sections that you could have 4 mini ebooks out of the one book? I ended up with 12 wraparound products. So ebooks, audio, and like what you've said, Anita, bang on. The workbook, brilliant. Kamini, what about for you? Has there been something that you've been able to do around speaking media and leveraging your book in that way?
So I too have made the book an arm of what I do. So while life coaching is my main career, shall we say, I also see myself as an author and a speaker. So when I am speaking, for instance, I don't just speak about my coaching. I always speak about the book as just another arm and a way that I'm able to serve people in a different manner. So, because my book is actually based on analogies and the reframing of things that happen in life. And so I do, because I view it as an arm of what I do, I make sure that whenever I am talking about my coaching, for instance, I do reference back to this book. And likewise, if I'm talking about my book, I'll usually reference back to the coaching because I do just see it as one, it's me, and then I talk about all of it as one package.
Yeah, beautiful. And it's important for us to remember as authors to actually talk about our book. I have read so many author bios when I used to have a radio show years ago, and I would interview authors all the time. And they'd have sometimes 3 books that were bestsellers and award winners. And I get their bio and it doesn't mention their book even. And I'm thinking, wow. And so I'd have to say, do you have a book? Oh yeah, I wrote a few books. And I thought, oh, that's not the way we sell books. So I love that you're including that. All of you had that included in your bio. And that's so important because it's also credibility to what you're Kamini, you're talking about branding, and it's credibility for that. Awesome. Carrie, what about you? How are you leveraging speaking media, the book?
Same answers as the other 2 ladies. I mean, you know, we all have workshops and coaching sessions and all of that. But I think what I would like to address is all the tools and strategies that I was given. So in speaking, for instance, I went to Costco and I really wanted to market. I have the book. I want to do this as a business. I don't want to just, you know, I don't want to be just a writer. I want to be an author. I want to be, you know, like I want to get out there. So I was like, okay, I'm going to Costco. Well, the first time I went, it was a flop and you know, didn't get very far. Went through your course, had some tools, some strategies, but you also give so many templates. You give, you know, scripts, you give so many different things, right? Tracking formats. There's so many pieces of tools and strategies that you can use. So when I went again, I had a one sheet. And so when the lady from the head office of Costco in all of Canada, she was saying, okay, well, do you have a one sheet? And I said, yes, of course. Yes, of course.
You probably got a big star beside your name at that moment.
No,
well
right?
done.
Yeah. I was like, yeah, of course. Yeah, I've got that. I'll get that off to you in like 5 minutes. And it was so cool because before the course, I didn't know what a one sheet was. During the course, I produced one. I got it all tickety-boo. I showed it to you. You know, said, well, don't forget this, don't forget that. And so tweaked it. And I feel really confident in putting that out there now. So
Well, I love that you created that, Carrie, because it can become your sell sheet. You know, a lot of us as speakers, we have a speaker one sheet, but a lot of authors haven't created that speaker or the author one sheet, sorry. And it's so powerful. I mean, so many ways that you can use a one sheet. I've seen authors in our program send it to media. Whenever they get booked for an interview, they send their speaking and book one sheet to the media host or the podcast host. I've seen people put it on their LinkedIn as I've seen actually somebody turned their PDF one sheet, I have to learn how to do this, into a video on LinkedIn. And do you think I can find that to see it? But it was basically, the chatter about it was that it was a PDF document turned into a simple video. So I thought, wow, like back to Anita's point about being creative.
yeah,
That's
well,
what it takes for us as authors.
Yeah, you showed us Jack Canfield's one sheet. And
He has a great one sheet.
I had never thought about, you know, putting into a one sheet. And it was like, wow, oh, that's brilliant. That's brilliant. There were so many ideas. It's endless.
You're so young. Jack Canfield's, I love Jack Canfield's one sheet because for me it and yes, on the questions as a one sheet is basically a one sheet has your photo as an author. It will have your book or book covers. So however many books you have, should have a few testimonials, and don't make them super long. Just a couple very pithy, supportive, well-written testimonials with a person's name, not just lover of your book, you know, have the person's name, have your contact information. Many do not put their contact information on their book sheet. You also want to put a blurb about what your book covers. And then on the back, you might have more information about you, the author, sort of what Kamini was talking about. Let them know a little bit about your inspiration behind the book. It might include information that Anita talked about, the communities that you travel in. So having a book one sheet is very important. So we're going to pull this together with a one-word answer. This is a challenge for us who are writers and speakers, but one word, and you can have like a one word, a hyphen, and a second word. So 2 words maximum. If you were to say like one thing to just do, for everybody listening today, one thing to just try, to step into, even if it's uncomfortable, even if it's new, what would that one thing be? And I'll let whoever has it can go first. Then you can
I can go first.
Okay, oh, you just jumped in on this time. Whoa.
This one I own. I own this one.
Okay, go for it. One thing.
One thing. Be visible.
Be visible. Beautiful. Be visible. Kamini Wood, 2020. Awesome.
You got it.
Okay, Anita or Carrie, who's going next?
I would say know yourself.
Know yourself. Beautiful. Know yourself.
Yeah, I'm going to steal from Nike and say, just do it.
Just do it.
Just do it. It's time, you know.
Just
if you
do it.
really want to do this as a business, just do it.
Just do it. Take an action. Take a
Something
little
small.
action. Yeah.
Something small. Go big.
Just
Go big or go home.
think big. You've written a book. Think of how much you put into writing that book. Give your book the chance to grow and unfold and impact lives the way that you want it to.
Yeah, give it life. Bring it out and let people explore it.
Let people see it. Let people see it. I mean, I know from my personal experience, my book came out right when the pandemic hit, and I had that moment of panic and thought I shouldn't have done it now. And instead, I stepped into ownership of it and said, this is a perfect time.
Beautiful.
Truly.
Right.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
It's timely for all of them.
Yes.
Mhm.
Well, and actually, shortly, we're going to talk about I'm going to talk about some virtual strategies. What can you do right now if you're an author to virtually launch a book, to do a virtual book tour, to getting some of those podcasts. So we're going to give you some tips and dive a little deeper on some of the information that we've talked about so far, and I'll answer some questions. But first, I really want to thank our incredible panelists, Carrie, Anita, Kamini. Oh, it was just an honor to have you on today. Thank you for saying yes and for being vulnerable and sharing with us what you've had to learn and what you've had to overcome and what you're doing that is making your book a business. I so appreciate you all.
Well, we're so grateful.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
it was
you.
my pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And for those of you I
Bye-bye.
know, yes, we're getting all, the screen is like going so fast. You're all amazing. Great. Thank you, panelists. They are amazing, aren't they? Aren't they awesome? So I'm going to start looking at a couple of questions. And I actually start to look at, so what does it really mean to create a book as a business? And I put together some slides to show you what some of the folks that I've met through our programs and what I've done that have really produced results and that build on the very important strategies that Anita talked about, Kamini talked about, and that Carrie talked about today, because what they offered, I mean, boy, oh boy, if you put everything together that Anita, Kamini, and Carrie said, that is your marketing plan. Honestly, I've written sort of a marketing plan based on what these three shared. It was so powerful. So let's look at what does it take to make a book a business? What are some other tangible, doable strategies, and what can you do in this virtual world? So here's a few things that I thought it could look like. So it could look like what some of the clients in our programs have done. Having their clothing sponsored. Isn't that super cool? You show up at a speaking engagement and all your awesome clothing was not paid for by you. I love that. And we've had some of our clients get clothing sponsored, jewelry, accessories. Someone got a gym membership, all the things that make their life easier, or the items that they need to run their business. We've had a couple of students now get RVs, motorhomes sponsored. A really cool, this was sort of a surprise to all of us because this was not even something Kamini knew. I'm just gonna share with Kamini. I got an email one day from Amazon and it said new from Kamini Wood, and I'll actually put a copy of the email in the handouts that we make available later. But the email was from Amazon.com and it was new from Kamini Wood. And I thought, well, I know Kamini, I must open this email. I opened this email and there is, like, taking over my whole screen, Kamini's book, the cover that you saw behind Kamini on the screen, her book cover, and it said, Kamini has just released a new book. We thought you should know about it. And because you follow Kamini on Amazon, here's a very important tip for you all. You want people to follow you on Amazon. You want people to follow you on Amazon. Because I follow Kamini and our authors on Amazon, Amazon thought I should know that she has a new book. So she got this email, a dedicated email. There were no other authors except, this is what's even more super cool. It also says other books that Kamini has been in: Voices of the 21st Century, Women Speakers Association, WSA Publishing. So when you are really leveraging your Amazon Author Central page, Amazon works for you. I've had numerous emails that Amazon has put out about many of my different books, and it came from me being active on Amazon, getting reviews on Amazon, and following and engaging with the people who write reviews. When people write you a review on Amazon, please go on and thank them on Amazon and engage with them. We are selling books by the box, and in some cases, the trunk load. Why stop at a box? Go for a trunk load. We've also had authors get their books featured in car dealerships. One of them actually has a partial sponsor from a car dealership who is also selling her book to generate revenue for her favorite charity for children. So there's many different ways that you can work with getting your book in bulk. And the other, oh, I just closed my screen. Let me just see if I can bring that up. Sorry, folks. And the other that you can do is sponsored speaking. So all of you who are speakers have had those calls that somebody desperately wants to have you on their stage, whether that be virtual or live, and there's no budget. Or we have an honorarium, and the honorarium is clearly not enough for your expertise and what you bring to the audience. So often speakers end up saying no. But one of the things that I love doing is helping speakers get sponsors to actually pay their speaking fees so that you can say yes to be on those speaking engagements, even though the event organizer doesn't have a budget. You have a sponsor who's paying you. And that's a really, really wonderful way to also do what Kamini and Carrie and Anita were talking about, building your community through the sponsors community. And as well, getting your book not only into bookstores, but also into gift stores, hospital gift stores. We have some of our authors that are selling their books in clothing stores, in gyms. One of them has her book in her local grocery store. So as Anita said earlier, be creative. And you heard all three of our author panelists talk about thinking big. Carrie said, just do it, think big. And then book tours. A lot of our students, Carrie just talked about doing a book tour. Hers was a live, and she had some virtual components. And right now you can do a virtual book tour, which I'll talk about when we get into the questions. And then also, of course, the Amazon email that we talked about for for Kamini. So there's so many different ways that you can make your book a business. And what does it mean at the end of the day? It means that, you know, more people's lives are impacted by your book and by your message. It means that your message gets into the hands of readers around the world. My publisher years ago told me that for every one book that you sell, give away, or put in the hands or the ears, because we have audiobooks as well, of a reader, that transpires into a couple sales within a year. So imagine that. This is why we need that plan. We actually in our program have a chart that I ask people to fill out where you actually track your sales. The majority of authors, and I am so guilty of this, the first number of years, I didn't even know clearly how many books I had purchased from the publisher and the printer and how many I had sold or given away. And when we started to do the math, I was unpleasantly surprised at how many books I was giving away, and that changed my marketing strategy. So those were a couple things I wanted to leave you with, and I'd love to share. We've got a program that actually starts on June 8th, in June, just a few weeks from now, and that was the program you heard. Carrie and Kamini were in our program, and you heard them talking about that. So let's talk about your book as a business scale, because we want to help these authors sell more books and make an impact with their message.
Absolutely. And as we were just going through some of your questions and or what you were asking the panelists, wow, it was absolutely amazing. Just, I was learning a lot from it and really enjoying it. So I hope you ladies that are on the call right now understand that your book is a business. I love what your husband said, Charmaine, about you did all this work just to sell 150 books. No, you didn't. You spent a lot of time writing this book to get it out in the hands of others. And your book as a business was created by Charmaine, and the content in it comes directly from what she's done. I think it was Carrie who said, you get your scripts, you get your templates. It's you getting Charmaine's documents that she created and used to get her own book out. So maybe this is, and
you know what I should say. Oops, sorry, Gail. I was going to say the reason we did that is, you know, you and I remember that we had many conversations at White Spot over Eggs Benedict for breakfast. And we start to one day look at what are all the reasons that authors stop, you know, so back to Carrie's comment about just do it. What makes authors stop? I don't know how to do it. I don't know what I would write in that letter to a library. How do you actually create that page? So we looked at every reason why people don't take action or make a movement. And then we created a workaround for you. So it was like, so Gail would say, well, do you have a script for that, Charmaine? It's like, oh yeah, I have numerous. Great, let's include those in the program. Or do you have samples of press releases that people could just modify? Yeah, perfect, we'll put those in the program. So we, Gail and I really want people to succeed. So that's why we actually just thought, we'll give you the tools so that you don't get stuck like I did when I started doing this many years ago. You've got what you need to move forward.
Absolutely. So it's much more, it's much more than a training, and it's much more than a workshop. It's a, here it is. Here it is on a silver platter for you. Just do it, as Nike and Carrie said. So Charmaine, do you want to step through the different, all the dates? Because we've had some questions come in.
Yes.
When is your next class starting? So here it is, ladies.
Here it is. So I'll explain the program, and I'm seeing some of the questions in the Q&A box that I'll address as we go through here. So the first part of the program is called Book Foundations, Book Success Foundations. And here is where we are talking about how to actually create the strategy to make your book a business. So this is the getting organized, creating those simple systems. It's really my goal to make things easy for you. Because you're going to be dancing in action and putting these strategies into action. So we want to make it easier for you. This is where we create your marketing plan for your book and also your sales goals. And we give you the charts and the plans to fill in, and we'll get you actually tracking your goals and the books that you give away. We talk about a lot of little things that you can do that have big results. For example, putting your book information in your email signature. So every time you send an email, people see that you're a speaker and that you're an author, and how to book you as a speaker and where to buy your book. And then we talk about some of the critical platforms to start connecting with. You heard Carrie and Comedy talk about a couple of those already around podcasts. Then in number 2, we talk about how to build that author brand. Comedy was talking about how important that was for her to build the brand around her book. This is where we get super clear on making sure that your Amazon Author Central page rocks, and that you have a Goodreads page that is engaged and bringing people to you so they're learning about your book. We'll also talk about book reviews, which ones to say yes to and which ones to avoid and run from. And then what do you do when you get a book review? So how do you actually create content from book reviews in a way that sells books and gets you booked speaking? So we go through those strategies, and also using LinkedIn as a primary source of building relationships, connecting with sponsors, and sponsorship is one of the modules later on. And then in Foundations 3, this is where we did, when Carrie was talking about her Author One Sheet, we'll work with you to create your sell sheet, your Author One Sheet, and get your book into libraries. And there was a question that came up in the book, and how do you get your book into libraries? We actually go through the strategy, and we've got examples of letters and phone call scripts that you can use when you contact the library. And we also talk about who to speak to at the library. I learned by trial and error, there are specific professionals that work in the library that you need to connect with, and otherwise your book will not get in there. And then you can see on the screen, of course, some of the incredible templates and tools and systems that you get. And then we dive deep into amplifying and monetizing. This is where we really create that media strategy. So we'll work with you on your press releases, and then where to get press releases. One of the cool things we've also put together for you is a list of online event boards. And we've just created this now. So those folks that were in the last class will be getting this. And it's about 120 online event boards where you can, for free, promote your different events. And many of them are on media sites, magazines, mainstream TV and radio. And then we'll look at all the importance of awards. Then we dive into 2 and we talk about book launches, virtual, which is perfect for right now, virtual book launches and tours. You don't even have to leave home. You can just stay home and launch your book and be on a tour virtually with the help of technology. And then we also talk about live tours. You heard Carrie sharing some of her journey on doing a live book tour that also had speaking opportunities, media opportunities, and some of her coaching. And then we go into book clubs. You heard me mention that it's a thing. Book clubs are actually one of the fastest ways you can sell your books in bulk, because many book clubs will purchase 10 to 15 books at a time for their book club to read. And there's specific sites that you'll want to get onto that book clubs go to pick their books from. And then we spend a whole segment on speaking. Everything you need to do to have your book book you for speaking, and your speaking sell your books. So we'll make sure you got your speaker one sheets, how to pitch yourself for speaking, how to work with event organizers, where to find speaking events. And we've got a number of strategies. I share the different ways that I get booked as a speaker, a paid speaker. So these are, you know, paid speaking. And then we also look at how to have speaking events where people purchase a certain quantity of your books, like 500 books, and you have a reduced speaking fee or a gifted fee. And then we get into the last segment, which is sponsorship, where you have sponsors buy your book in bulk, where you build these incredible collaborative relationships with sponsors so that your message is getting out there to a bigger audience. You're touching more lives. And the sponsor relationship is that the sponsor is providing something to you, cash sponsorship or in-kind sponsorship, like those authors that had their RV or their clothing or their travel sponsored. The sponsor is coming on board to support you in your projects because that company believes that what you are doing will help them solve some of their marketing issues. And so it's a really incredible relationship where the sponsor is helping you at the same time you're helping the sponsor. So that kind of goes through what this program is all about. Did I miss anything, Gail?
No, I think that's awesome. As you see by the first dates, this class is starting on June 8th. I know that when you're a part of this, your sessions are recorded.
Yes.
Right?
Yep.
So that if you're looking at some of these dates and some of these dates you already have a conflict, don't worry about it. They are recorded. So this is an investment in your business, your book as a business. And this is the website that you can go to. So we want to make it really, really easy for you to get involved. This is bookasabusiness.com. You'll see that this course is $14.97. But we know that everybody on this call is a guest. A guest of Women Speakers Association. Maybe you found us through Charmaine or Anita or Comedy or Carrie, or you've been invited some. We want to make something really attractive for you. If you went here, we would give you a code. Your code is all capitals WSA 20. And what that gives you is a $500 discount. That makes this investment in your business $9.97. Easy to get involved. That's one payment. You can do that, click there, or we have a 3-pay plan that's at $350 now, and then every 30 days, the next 2 months after, it's $350. So a little bit of savings when you do the one payment, but really think about this, ladies, because investment is important when it comes to your business. And you wrote this book, and if you wrote your book to sell 125 copies, then you're happy. But if you wrote it to have that influence, that inspiration, and make a difference in people's lives, then this book really needs to get out. And when you think of $9.97, you think on average, the average book cost is what, say $20. You only need to sell, what, 50 books to get your full return, right?
I love how you do the math on that.
Well, yeah, I was just thinking
Awesome.
about it, because to 50 books, that's easy to do. I mean, we just heard from 3 people that had been in your course that are experiencing sales success with their book, physical sales success. So that's a lot in terms, I mean, what you're receiving is a lot. It's the scripts, it's the templates for those press release, all the tools that you need. You're not spending time creating. So I hope you find this.
And we should mention, Gail, that the course is actually live. So while you're getting, this is not an online self-study. I'll be there live just like we're doing today. It's a live class. The last 30 minutes of every class is your time to ask Q&A. So some of the questions that you've been asking here in the chat box, for example, can you get a self-published book into Costco? And if yes, how? Or, you know, what is the strategy, the exact strategy to get your book into libraries? Or do you have a section about pre-sales? This is where you can bring your own individual questions to that live class so I can answer right there. The other cool thing is you can send them to me in advance, which I prefer because it allows me to go gather extra info for you. And we create what's called an FAQ document, frequently asked questions document. Every question that I get asked, unless it's something, you know, hugely personal just to you, but every question that the group will benefit from, we can then put that into an FAQ document, and that becomes a running document that you can use long after the program is done. And you're also in the Raise a Dream community when you register. So you go into a private Facebook group with Raise a Dream, and every week there we're doing training calls and supporting the authors that are and speakers and organizations that are in our program. So there's a lot of personalized support that's live. It's not a, you know, a do-it-yourself program. So yes, pre-sales, there was a couple questions. Do you cover pre-sales? We'll talk about pre-sales in that program. And when I know your questions in advance, then I can pull together strategies and resources to support that.
Mm-hmm. I was just in a group chat with Comedy the other day, and she said, I was asking her about what did, you know, for feedback on Book as a Business as the course. And she said, Charmaine's great. When you ask her a question, she just doesn't give you one answer. She answers the question and then gives you about 8 or 9 resources afterwards. So it's like,
it's because it's back to what Anita said too. You know, we're always learning and growing, and every week there's something new that I didn't hear about. So your questions put me into action to go find that out. And somebody was asking for the website again, link for the website again.
yeah, I'll put
that in the chat box. Awesome.
It's bookasabusiness.com.
Yes.
So
yeah. There was also a question somewhere back earlier about, I have a book that has been out for a while that wasn't really selling, isn't really moving. So we actually have worked with a lot of students where that is the case. And we've had some people in our programs that are actually relaunching their book. Some have just relaunched as the book the way it is. Others are relaunching with an upgraded cover, some new testimonials. Maybe they've changed a few pieces inside the book, but absolutely you can relaunch. I mean, we're going to do a relaunch for On Toby's Terms this year. The book's 10 years old, and I found a secret stash of book scale that I didn't realize I had bought. Obviously, they didn't make it to my tracking form. I bought them for the Million Acts of Kindness tour, and I thought I had sold them, and we found them in the storage unit. So we have some books to move, which is really cool because the timing is perfect. We're going to relaunch as part of a 10-year celebration of this book. So you can relaunch and do pre-sales and marketing. It doesn't have to just happen when your book comes out. In fact, it shouldn't stop. And my publisher told me, there was a question, are you self-published or traditionally published? I'm actually in a number of collaborative books. I'm traditionally published with 4 different publishers, and then I'm also self-published. So I've actually danced in all of those different realms, and each one of them requires a little bit of a different marketing strategy. But what I will tell you is my very first publisher, Betty, she said to me, Charmaine, books sell because of what authors do. And so she said, we can do everything in the world. The book will sell because, as Comedy said, you're showing up. You know, Carrie said, you're just doing it. You're putting actions into place. Anita said, you're building your community. Those are all the things that move our books. And that was important for me to hear. So basically what she was saying is an ongoing strategy, and don't bring out book number 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 until you've really given book 1 a chance. Mm-hmm. And you can launch it multiple times.
Mm-hmm. Going back to our Eggs Benny conversation, when I asked you a specific question. I asked you about how'd you learn all this? They taught you. and you shared with me that you had hired a publicist.
Yeah.
And what was the other piece that?
Yeah, we hired a publicist. We hired a marketing team, which I even forgot about when that day we talked. So we hired a publicist for about $10,000 US. We hired a marketing team that probably cost over the course of 3 years, 30,000 maybe. We hired some sponsorship experts years and years ago when I was learning how to really do this in my own business. And so I've spent hundreds of thousands of dollars learning this, as well as attending every webinar going and reading every book and going to conferences to learn how to do this, and then applying it in my own work so I could test it first.
So we're getting what you've put to the test, some of the things that work the best, and that's what you're sharing.
Yeah. And when something changes, this is the other important piece. When something changes, like there have been times when I've come across a platform that I really love, and then something changes with the platform and I don't love it as much. I let the authors know I'm no longer a lover of that platform. Because, or same with book awards, that's a great example. There are a lot of book awards out there that are highly credible. Reader's Favorite is one of my, I love Reader's Favorite reviews. One of Tracy in our program got a stellar review from Reader's Favorite for her book that she shared on Facebook recently. There's also a number of book review sites that really are an opportunity for a company to make money because everyone's a winner. Everyone wins an award. And here's the deal. Bookstores, book buyers, gift stores, libraries, they will know whether an award is a credible award with integrity or whether it's sort of these cash grab awards. So you want to choose book awards carefully. There was some that I loved a few years ago that I don't support now, and I let the authors know that. And there's some that I just love, like Reader's Favorite. All of you want to be getting a review from Reader's Favorite, for sure. They post it on Amazon and Goodreads and Barnes & Noble if your book is on there, which is super cool.
Right. So just as a wrap up here, because I want to really thank you. We've for everybody's time here, but just for those who are still on right now, in the chat box, please type in one word with how you're feeling right now, just to conclude, just so we understand the room and how you're feeling, because that would be really awesome to know that. And Charmaine, while that's happening, I just want to really thank you for your time. Your expertise has just been absolutely amazing. And just to recap these words that are going in, what you've contributed to this room is people feeling inspired, empowered, great, ambitious, super inspired, gratitude, inspired, empowered, encouraged, proud to be a part of this, very inspired, grateful, clear on goals, impactful, generous, motivated. What is the discount code again? Oh, WSA 20, all capitals, WSA 20. And that gives you $500 off. So excited, more inspired than ever. Ladies, wow, you are, I hope, one thing that our wish is here for you with Women Speakers Association to get you more visible out there with Raise a Dream is to have your dreams become reality. And this is more than you just writing a book. This, as the ladies on our panel said, this is about you claiming that you are a writer. You're an author. Yeah. You're a best-selling author. But this is also a business. You spent all that time, you spent all that energy, you spent that money in creating this product. It's not just a product anymore. It is a business. You have birthed it. And now you have to nurture it and grow it so it can have the impact that you desired for it to have. You wrote it for a reason. And it serves nobody, it being a piece of furniture in your home, right? So it's about getting into the right hands. Any last words, Charmaine, before we depart here?
I just want to say that one of the pieces that I love about being an author, and I hear this all the time from authors, is that the opportunities are really endless. This is when you have a book, there are so many different ways that you can build your speaking on the backs of your book, and build your book on the back of your speaking, and really think about your business holistically. And the other piece I wanted to say is that, you know, it's back to that conversation we had before. There are so many people who dream about being a writer. And I get emotional when I talk about this. And I just want to share this story to close. I didn't consider myself a writer when I was publishing Chicken Soup for the Soul. And we've all heard of those series. And I also didn't really, like, I knew I was a writer, and I didn't really talk about being a writer. And it was when I was at an elementary school in California, and I was reading my children's book that had just come out. So this was 5 years after my first book. I'm reading this children's book, and there's this little guy, just adorable. You just want to pinch his cheeks. He was so cute. And he's just staring, and he kept sort of sliding this note out into the aisle. And then when I would get close, he would sort of slide it back on the floor. And I was very curious to what this was. And I walked up to him at the end, and he waited till all the other students in the elementary school left the gym. And he came up and he said his name is Tommy. And he said, I want to be an author, a real life author, just like you. And I remember, like right now, I'm getting emotional. I looked at Chris and my husband, I said, oh my gosh, Chris, I'm an author. Of course, he's thinking, of course you are. We've been doing this 5 years. And what I realized is that so many people dream about being an author and they never take the step. And you took that step. You've got a book. And so don't keep it a secret. Get it out to the world, because when you do, you inspire other people to lift their dreams and raise their dreams. And that's important. That's what makes our world a better place.
Love that. Oh, that's so beautiful. And I'm just going into the comments here, and yes, there is a recording coming through, so you'll see that. But we forgot one of the most important things. In addition to the program, you also get 3 big bonuses.
Oh yes, the
one
bonuses.
is an author spotlight interview. That is a 20-minute personalized interview about you and your book, and promoting a call to action for people to purchase your book. So that's a big thing. And then you're also going to receive a one-on-one personalized 45-minute call with Charmaine. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's just talking about you and your book, and really specifically addressing that personal attention that you need and guidance in selling more books. And of course, you're going to have lifetime access into your book as a business community. So the training doesn't stop once you hit graduation. The training keeps going. It's a private group, and there's lots of opportunity for promotion and just keeping up on the latest stuff, because there were some questions in here about, well, what with some of the latest things happening. And so that's really, that's all in there. The training dates, again, are from June 8th. And then they go right to July 27th. So I believe that's every second week, correct?
Every week. I need to see the screen again.
Yeah.
Yep. And there's eight days. That's correct. There's 8 training days. That's correct, Virginia.
8 training days.
8 sessions.
They are recorded, so if you can't make that. But of course, this is something you really want to slot in your calendar and to do, because you also meet some cool people. It was a Carrie and Comedy that connected, right? Yeah. So, and some really cool resources that get shared. Yeah. So we've come to the.
I know.
So I hope to see everybody's book booming.
Yes.
That would be a good graduate one, booming as a business.
Well, here's the deal. People are reading a lot of books right now. Books are being consumed, shared, talked about, listened to. This is a wonderful time for each of you as an author to get your book out there in many ways. Workplaces are looking for books to give their employees. And so the opportunities are endless. It's sort of around, how big can you dream? And what are you prepared to do to put those dreams into action?
Yeah. Okay. Oh, and we just have a couple things. Can I share the link with my friends for the discount, and can people refer? Yes, we want to help as many authors out there as possible turn their book into a business. This isn't a course that's offered often. So Charmaine is always quite full in her schedule. So this is what we have slated for 2020 for you to help you with this book as a business. So if you want to do this, you do it now. And you really want to commit. It's a great time to do it. Since traveling's not all that active right now, this is a great time to do it. And also, if there was someone special who referred you to today's session, training, and you've signed up for the course, you've seen that we're asking you who referred you, because we'd love to know and reach out with a big thank you to them. And Virginia said, great, it's about $1,000. Yes, when you apply the code to the 1497, it is, you receive a $500 discount, taking it to $997. And remember, all you have to do is sell 50 bucks to get your return on cash investment there, but you'll have much more.
I love that you brought that up, Gail, because that should be the first goal. I mean, we talked about that in class one with the other group. Is the whole goal is to, first of all, get your investment back. So that's where you're driving your energy is, how do I sell 50 books? How do I sell 100 books? And when then it seems very doable. When we think about my goal is 50,000 books, that just feels really big. How about take the smaller steps? Let's sell books 50 at a time, 100 at a time.
Yeah, love that. Okay, ladies, thank you so much for your time today. Thank you for your attention. We wish you well wherever you are in this world, and please stay safe, stay healthy. We love you, and we look forward to seeing you again on our next Speaker Success training. But more, I want to see you in Book as a Business for sure. All right. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you.
Yay. Thank you. The thank yous are coming in. Let me just stop.